The shy waitress greeted the billionaire's deaf mother, but what she expressed through sign language left the entire room stunned. Subscribe now, or this might be our last meeting. Follow, comment, and share to stay connected, because you won't want to miss what comes next. The crystal chandelier painted moving shadows across the marble floor of Leonard, while Anna Martinez adjusted her black uniform for the third time that evening. Her hands shook slightly, not from fear of serving Manhattan's elite, but from the constant burden of concealing her true self. At 24, she had mastered invisibility, gliding through the restaurant like a silent ghost wrapped in a polite smile. "Table 12 needs their wine refilled," Sarah, the head waitress, called without looking up. "And don't spill anything on Mr. Blackwood tonight. He's already complained twice about the temperature." Anna nodded, lifting a bottle of Chateau Margaux worth more than her monthly pay. Marcus Blackwood. His name itself reeked of wealth, both inherited and earned, the kind that made people lower their gaze in quiet submission. For 3 months she'd served his table, and not once had he regarded her as anything more than the furniture around him. The dining room buzzed softly with the murmurs of those untouched by the worries of rent, medical bills, or school fees, burdens Anna once knew too well. "Excuse me, miss." The voice, crisp and authoritative, made her spine stiffen. She turned, startled to find Marcus Blackwood standing closer than expected, his steely gray eyes locking onto hers with an unsettling intensity that sent an unwelcome flutter through her stomach. He was tall, forcing her to tilt her head back just to meet his gaze, with dark, perfectly styled hair that looked like it required a stylist whose hourly rate exceeded her weekly paycheck. His suit was flawless, Italian without question, and worth more than her entire wardrobe. "Your wine, sir," Anna murmured, holding up the bottle. "Not for me," Marcus replied coolly, gesturing toward the elegant woman seated behind him. "My mother, she's been trying to get your attention for the past 10 minutes. Anna turned, and her heart softened instantly. Mrs. Blackwood, likely in her early 60s, had silver hair pinned neatly back and eyes full of warmth and quiet stories. The woman was signing gently, her face alight with anticipation. Without hesitation, Anna placed the bottle on a nearby table and approached her. "Good evening," she signed with fluid grace. "How may I help you?" Mrs. Blackwood's expression brightened with joy as her hands came alive. "How wonderful! I wanted to compliment the chef on the salmon. It reminded me of a dish I had in Paris years ago." "I'll be sure he hears your kind words," Anna replied, her smile genuine for the first time that night. "Would you like me to ask about the preparation?" "I believe he uses a special herb blend." The soft hum of conversation faded as diners began to notice the unexpected exchange, but Anna's focus stayed on the older woman's expressive hands and animated memories of France. "You're very kind," Mrs. Blackwood signed. "Most people just smile and nod when they realize I'm deaf." "You sign beautifully. Where did you learn?" "I studied linguistics in college," Anna answered automatically, then froze, heart pounding as she realized her slip. "Linguistics?" Marcus's voice sliced through the quiet, his sharp gray eyes narrowing. "What university?" The panic rose like a tide in her chest. She'd spent years hiding her past, and with one moment of honesty, her carefully guarded secret now stood exposed. "It was just a few classes, sir." "Nothing important," Anna said quickly, forcing steadiness into her voice. But Marcus didn't buy it. He took a step closer, lowering his tone to something quieter, and somehow far more dangerous. "You speak sign language fluently. You mentioned linguistics, and I'm guessing that's not the only language you know. What else are you hiding?" His words hung between them like a live wire, sharp and charged. Anna could feel the room's attention shift toward them, could sense Sarah hovering nervously by the counter, already bracing for the fallout. "I should get back to work," Anna whispered, reaching for the wine bottle, but Marcus caught her wrist. Not roughly, just enough to stop her. The contact sent a jolt through her, and for an instant she saw something flicker in his eyes that mirrored her own shock. "I'm sorry," he murmured, his voice softening. "That was unnecessarily harsh." Anna looked down at his hand, elegant, manicured, untouched by labor, then back up at his face, where the hardness had melted into something unexpectedly human. "Your mother is lovely," she said quietly. "She was telling me about her trip to Paris." "She likes you," he replied, releasing her but not stepping back. "She doesn't like many people." "Maybe because most people don't take the time to really listen." The words slipped out sharper than she intended, but Marcus only lifted a brow, a trace of amusement curving his lips. "And you think I don't listen?" I think you're used to people telling you what you want to hear." This time, his smile broke fully. Real, warm, disarming. "You're probably right," he admitted. "But you still didn't answer my question about the university." Anna froze, caught between her instinct to protect her past and the curiosity burning in his gaze. Across the table, Mrs. Blackwood watched them with a knowing smile, her eyes sparkling as if she understood the entire unspoken tension. Finally, Anna exhaled. "Columbia," she said, the word landing like a confession. "I studied at Columbia." For a heartbeat, Marcus's expression shifted. Surprise, confusion, and then something that looked very much like respect. "Columbia has an excellent linguistics program. What made you decide to change careers?" The question was innocent enough, but it hit Anna like a punch to the gut. How could she possibly explain that she hadn't chosen any of this, that her career, her life, and her future had been stolen by the very person she once trusted most? That waitressing wasn't a decision but a necessity, the only thing left when her reputation had been quietly, ruthlessly destroyed. "Sometimes life doesn't go according to plan," she managed, her voice even despite the storm beneath it. "No?" Marcus said softly, his gray eyes fixed on her with unsettling intensity. "I suppose it doesn't." Mrs. Blackwood's gentle hand movements broke the silence between them, her expression mischievous. "You two should talk more," she signed. "My son works too much and doesn't meet enough interesting people." "What did she say?" Marcus asked. Suspicion laced through his tone. Heat crept up Anna's neck. "She said, 'You work very hard.'" Marcus tilted his head, smiling faintly. "That's not all she said. You added something. She also mentioned that you should eat more vegetables." Marcus let out an unexpected laugh. Rich, genuine, and entirely disarming. Several diners glanced over, startled by the sound. "My mother did not say anything about vegetables." "How would you know? You don't speak sign language." "No," he said, amusement flickering in his eyes. "But I know her humor, and judging by how red you just turned, she said something to embarrass one or both of us." Anna gave up pretending. "She thinks you should meet more interesting people." "Does she?" he asked, glancing toward his mother, who looked far too pleased with herself. Then his eyes returned to Anna. "And what do you think? Am I meeting interesting people?" The question felt heavier than it sounded, full of meanings she wasn't ready to face. Standing this close, Anna could smell his cologne. Subtle, expensive, almost intoxicating. She noticed the faint lines around his eyes, hints of a man who smiled more often than his cold reputation suggested. "I think," Anna said carefully, "that you're used to people who want something from you. And you don't want anything from me." His brows lifted, a spark of intrigue in his expression. "You're right. And that makes you different." She caught the faint edge of vulnerability beneath his polished tone, and suddenly wondered how many people had used him, disappointed him, or seen only the money, not the man. "I want you to let me do my job," Anna said quietly, glancing towards Sarah, who stood at the hostess station, her expression tight with worry. "Before she decides I'm more trouble than I'm worth." Marcus followed her gaze, then nodded slightly. "Of course." He stepped back, but his eyes stayed on her. "But this conversation isn't over. Sir, I have questions, Ana Martinez." Hearing her full name startled her. He probably knew everyone who worked in his world, yet the way he said it made her chest tighten. "And something tells me your answers might surprise me." The ground beneath her felt suddenly unstable. For 3 months, she'd been invisible, safe in anonymity. Now Marcus Blackwood was looking at her like a mystery he intended to unravel, and that was the one thing she couldn't afford. "I should really get back to work," she murmured, though it sounded more like a plea. "Of course," he said, stepping aside with a graceful motion that felt almost old-fashioned. "But Anna—" His tone dropped just enough to make her heart stutter. "I'll see you next week." It wasn't a question. It was a promise. As she walked away, she could feel his gaze following her across the room. Mrs. Blackwood caught her eye and signed with a knowing smile. "He likes you." That single signed sentence, "he likes you," made Anna stumble over her own feet. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of refilled glasses and polite smiles, but her focus kept drifting to table 12. Every time she dared to glance that way, Marcus's eyes were already on her, calm and unreadable, as if he were silently piecing together a puzzle. When the Blackwoods finally rose to leave, Marcus paused at her station. "Have a good "Evening, Anna," he said softly, leaning in just close enough for her to catch the faint scent of his cologne. "And next time, maybe you can tell me about Paris. I have a feeling your story about studying there might be more interesting than you've let on." The words froze her blood. Paris? She had never mentioned Paris. Only Mrs. Blackwood had. Somehow, Marcus had connected dots she'd spent years trying to keep separate. As she watched him guide his mother toward the exit, realization sank like lead in her chest. Her anonymity was gone. Marcus Blackwood wasn't just intrigued anymore. He was investigating. By the time Anna counted her tips, her hands trembled. His voice still echoed in her mind. Paris. How could he have known? She'd buried that part of her life so completely, hidden the woman who once negotiated million-dollar contracts in glass boardrooms overlooking the Seine. "You okay, girl?" Sarah's voice broke through her thoughts. The older waitress stood beside her, concern etched in her lined face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," Anna lied, forcing a smile and shoving a handful of crumpled bills into her purse. "Just tired." Sarah folded her arms. "That Blackwood guy really had you rattled. What was all that hand-waving about?" "His mother's deaf," Anna replied evenly. "I was just passing along her compliments to the chef." "Since when do you know sign language?" The question sounded casual, but Anna heard the curiosity underneath. "Picked up a few things in college," she said, keeping her tone light. "Nothing fancy." Sarah didn't look convinced, but shrugged. "Well, whatever you did, you made an impression. He left a $200 tip." Anna's stomach dropped. "What? 200. For a 30-minute dinner!" Sarah's eyes gleamed with a mix of envy and suspicion. Rich guys don't tip like that unless they're planning to come back for more than just the salmon. The implication made Anna's skin crawl. "It's not like that," she muttered, but Sarah gave a knowing smirk. "Honey, I've been in this business 20 years. With men like him, it's always like that. Just be careful. Guys with that kind of money don't play by the same rules as the rest of us." Anna nodded, though Sarah's warning felt far too late. Marcus Blackwood wasn't chasing her for the reasons Sarah thought. He wasn't interested in her. He was interested in her past. And that was far more dangerous. The subway ride home to her tiny studio in Queens felt endless. Every flicker of shadow against the window made her tense. 2 years had passed since she'd started looking over her shoulder, waiting for the day David Chen, her ex-fiancé, her betrayer, would finish what he'd started. He'd been thorough in his destruction, methodical in turning her name, her career, and her future into dust. First, her reputation had crumbled, then her career, and finally her finances. The only thing that had saved Anna from complete annihilation was her ability to vanish, to become no one. But if Marcus Blackwood started digging into her past, how long before David Chen discovered she wasn't as broken as he'd left her? How long before he came to finish the job? Her phone buzzed as she climbed the creaking stairs to her third-floor walk-up. Unknown number. The message read, "Hope you don't mind. I got your number from the restaurant's HR department. This is Marcus Blackwood. I wanted to thank you for being so kind to my mother tonight. She hasn't stopped talking about you." Monsieur Anna stared at the screen, her pulse spiking. HR department, of course. Men like Marcus didn't ask for access. They simply took it. The casual intrusion into her privacy should have made her furious, but instead it sent a chill deep into her bones. She began typing a polite reply, deleted it, tried again, then gave up entirely and shut off her phone. Her apartment was what you'd expect from a waitress in Queens. Tiny, quiet, and filled with secondhand furniture that didn't match. But hidden beneath her mattress was a small lockbox containing the fragments of the life she'd lost. An MBA from Columbia, a CPA license, and proof of ownership for patents David had stolen and built his empire on. Pulling out her old laptop, a dented relic she'd kept hidden from collectors, Anna hesitated before typing the name she'd avoided for 2 years. David Chen, Pinnacle Financial. The search results made her stomach twist. Pinnacle had exploded in size, expanding across continents built on her stolen innovations. But it was the newest headline that made her blood run cold. Pinnacle Financial announces merger with Blackwood Industries. Marcus Blackwood and David Chen, partners. Anna's breath caught, her hands flying to her mouth to keep from screaming. It couldn't be coincidence. David was ruthless, manipulative, but never careless. If he was joining forces with Marcus, there was a purpose behind it. Was this a trap? Had he found her again, using Marcus as the lure? Her phone buzzed once more. Another message from Marcus. I know you're probably tired, but I can't stop thinking about our conversation. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow? Somewhere we can actually talk." Monsieur Anna stared until the letters blurred into a smear of light. Every instinct screamed run. Pack up, disappear, vanish before the web closed in. But running required money and courage, and she was out of both. More than anything, she was exhausted from living like a ghost. Maybe meeting Marcus was madness, but maybe it was her chance to stop being afraid. Her fingers trembled as she typed, "I work tomorrow night, but I'm free for lunch." The reply came instantly. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at noon. Wear something comfortable. I have a feeling we're going to be doing a lot of talking." Anna set the phone aside, pressing her hands against her face. She was either about to make the biggest mistake of her life or the first move toward taking it back. Morning brought another text, one that froze her blood all over again. "Change of plans. Meet me at Columbia University. The steps of Low Library. I want to see where you studied." Columbia. He was already investigating her, already unearthing the pieces of a past she'd buried so deep. Even she sometimes pretended it wasn't hers. The casual mention of Columbia felt like the jaws of a trap closing around her. Yet, what choice did she really have? Running now would only confirm his suspicions, and she was exhausted from living like a ghost. She dressed carefully, choosing the one outfit she'd salvaged from her former life. A simple black dress that once cost more than 2 months of her current wages. It felt foreign against her skin, like a costume from a forgotten role. The campus pulsed with life, students rushing to classes, faces bright with the optimism she once possessed. Marcus waited exactly where he'd promised, sitting on the library steps with 2 coffees and a look of barely restrained curiosity. In daylight, he appeared younger, less severe, his dark hair catching the autumn light, his expensive suit replaced with jeans and a cashmere sweater that screamed wealth while pretending casual ease. "You found me," he said, rising to hand her a cup. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I almost didn't," she replied, accepting the coffee, recognizing the taste of the high-end cafe nearby. "But you did, why?" he asked, voice mild but eyes sharp, probing. Everything about him spoke of a man who solved puzzles for sport, and she was simply his latest mystery. "Because I'm tired of running from my past," she said, startled by her own honesty. His expression softened. "Running from something specific or just in general? What makes you think I'm running?" "Anna, you're 24, Columbia-educated, multilingual, and waiting tables in Manhattan. You recognize fine wine, and yesterday you corrected my French under your breath. Either you're fleeing something, or you're method acting for a novel." She nearly choked. "You heard that?" "I hear everything. Business teaches you to notice what others ignore." He sat again, gesturing for her to join. "So what's the story? Breakup? Family scandal? Student loans the size of a small nation?" His joking tone didn't hide the keen calculation in his eyes. He was offering her a chance to shape the truth before he found it himself. "All of the above," she said finally, sitting beside him with deliberate distance. "Plus some creative accounting by someone I trusted." "Someone stole from you," he stated flatly, and the calm certainty in his voice made something deep inside her loosen for the first time in years. No judgment, no pity, just quiet acknowledgement. "Someone stole everything from me," Anna said softly. "My work, my reputation, my future. I'm not just running from debt, Marcus. I'm running from the man who destroyed my life and made the world believe I deserved it." Marcus stayed silent, his fingers tightening around his cup. "David Chen," he said at last. The name made Anna's coffee slip from her hand, splashing across the steps. "How do you—" "Because I know David very well," Marcus interrupted. "And if he's the one who did this to you, then we have a problem." The world tilted beneath her. Anna grabbed his arm without thinking, nails digging into cashmere. "You know him? How?" "Anna," Marcus said, his tone grave. "David Chen is my business partner. We're about to close the biggest deal of our careers." The words hit like blows. Of course, David had found a way back into her life, using someone she'd begun to trust as his pawn. "This is a setup," she whispered, stepping back. "Your mother, the restaurant, all of it." "He sent you." "No," Marcus said quickly, catching her wrist. Firm, not cruel. "David has no idea I'm here. Whatever he did, this isn't about him. It's just us." "I don't believe you." "Then let me prove it." He pulled out his phone, scrolling. "I'll call him now. You'll see." Panic froze her, but curiosity anchored her feet. He pressed call, putting the phone on speaker. "Marcus," came David's voice, smooth, familiar, venom wrapped in charm. "Perfect timing, I was just reviewing the merger documents. Everything looks—" "David," Marcus interrupted, "quick question. I met someone yesterday who says she knows you from business school. Anna Martinez, linguistics background, worked in finance for a bit." Silence. Thick, sharp, suffocating. Anna could almost feel David's shock bleeding through the line. "Anna Martinez?" he repeated, tone calm, too calm. "Doesn't ring a bell. Should it?" The lie was effortless, practiced. 2 years of love, trust, and shared dreams, erased in a breath. "Maybe I misunderstood," Marcus said smoothly, eyes locked on Anna's face. "She seemed certain she knew you. Mentioned working together on projects." "You know how it is, Marcus," David replied, chuckling lightly. Business school connections blur. "Maybe we were in a study group or something." "I honestly can't place her," David said smoothly, and Anna let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "A study group. 3 years of partnership, 2 years of engagement, reduced to a passing acquaintance." "Right," Marcus replied evenly. "Well, if you remember anything, let me know. I'll talk to you later about the Steinberg contracts." "Of course. And Marcus," David added, his tone shifting into polite warning, "be careful about people claiming to know me from the past. You'd be surprised how many try to use fake connections to get close to successful men like yourself." The call ended, leaving the air thick with disbelief. "Fake connections," Anna repeated numbly. "That's what our engagement was, apparently." Marcus stared at his phone as if it had betrayed him. "You were engaged to David Chen for 2 years?" 3 years as business partners before that," Anna replied, her voice distant, hollow. "We built Pinnacle Financial together. Every algorithm, every client pitch, every innovation. That was my work. He stole all of it." Her throat tightened. "Then he made it look like I was the thief. Falsified documents, forged records, turned our clients against me. By the time I realized what was happening, he'd already filed charges and frozen my accounts." Marcus's jaw flexed, anger visible in every line of his face. "The charges didn't stick, or you'd be in prison." "They didn't stick because he dropped them at the last minute. Said he didn't want to ruin my life over a misunderstanding." Bitterness roughened her tone. "He got to play the noble victim while everyone still thought I was guilty. Who drops theft charges unless they're certain the accused did it? It was perfect. He looked merciful, and I looked corrupt." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, shaking his head. "That's diabolical." "That's David," Anna said flatly. "And now he's your business partner. So what are you going to do about it?" Marcus held her gaze, silent for a long, tense beat before standing and extending his hand. "I'm going to find out the truth," he said quietly. "And then I'm going to make sure David Chen pays for what he did to you." The words should have sparked hope, but all Anna felt was tired disbelief. Men like David didn't pay. They thrived. And men like Marcus, no matter how sincere, always chose power over justice in the end. Yet when she looked at his outstretched hand, something inside her cracked. The faint pulse of something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Against all logic, she took his hand and rose. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why would you risk a business deal to help someone you barely know?" Anna asked quietly, her voice trembling despite her effort to sound steady. Marcus didn't respond at first. Instead, he studied her with a gaze so intense, it felt like he could see every wall she'd ever built. "Because," he said finally, his voice low and sure, "I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who want something from me. But yesterday, for the first time in years, I met someone who didn't. You were just kind to my mother. You didn't know who I was. You had no agenda. You were just decent." His thumb brushed over her knuckles, a soft, deliberate touch that made her pulse quicken. "And because David Chen just lied to my face about knowing you, which means everything you told me is probably true, and everything he's told me is probably a lie." The simple conviction in his tone hit Anna harder than any declaration of love could have. When was the last time someone had believed her without proof or evidence? "What if you're wrong?" she whispered. "What if I'm the liar?" Marcus smiled, and the warmth in that expression melted through her fear. "Then I guess I'm about to make a very expensive mistake. But something tells me I'm not." He started walking, still holding her hand, and she let him lead her. "Where are we going?" "My office," he said. "I want to show you something." "Marcus, I can't," she protested. "People will see your reputation." He stopped abruptly, turning to face her fully. I don't care about my reputation, Anna. I care about the truth. And I have a feeling the truth about David Chen is going to be very interesting. As they crossed the campus, Anna caught their reflections in the glass buildings. The Billionaire and the Waitress, two worlds colliding in the strangest of ways. For the first time in years, she felt like more than a ghost. She felt like someone worth fighting for. Marcus's office was perched atop a sleek midtown tower, its walls of glass framing the Manhattan skyline. The reception area gleamed with understated luxury. Assistants in designer suits, soft lighting, art that whispered wealth. Mr. Blackwood, his assistant greeted, rising from her desk. You weren't scheduled to be in today? Change of plans, Jennifer. Hold my calls for the next hour, and complete confidentiality on this meeting. Her smile faltered briefly when her eyes flicked to Anna. Of course, sir. Anna felt her cheeks burn under the woman's curious gaze as Marcus led her through the massive double doors. The office was striking, dark wood, leather, and glass, but it radiated warmth rather than intimidation. Drink? Marcus offered, moving to a bar that probably held bottles worth more than her year's rent. No thank you, she said, still near the door. Marcus, what exactly are you hoping to accomplish? Even if everything I've told you is true, David is still your partner. You can't what? He interrupted, pouring himself a drink. Hold him accountable? His voice hardened. Anna, if David Chen destroyed your life for profit, then he's exactly the kind of man I don't want in business, or anywhere near me. Yet the money, there's always another deal. Marcus sat into one of the leather chairs facing his desk and beckoned for Anna to join him. There's not always another opportunity to do the right thing. Anna sat on the edge of the opposite chair, her entire body tense with uneasy energy. You say that now, but when you see the figures involved, when your board starts asking questions, my board answers for me, not the other way around. Marcus's tone was mild, but Anna caught the steel underneath, and the figures don't matter if they're built on fraud. He leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. Tell me about the patents, Anna. David's company has filed 17 patents in the last 2 years, all related to algorithm trading and risk assessment. How many of those did you develop? Anna's breath caught. How did you... Because I've been reviewing Pinnacle's assets as part of our due diligence, and something about the filing dates concerned me. 17 patents, all filed within 6 months of each other, all allegedly developed by David's team. Marcus pulled out a tablet and scrolled through several documents. But when I looked at David's academic background, his prior work history, nothing indicated he had the technical expertise to develop this kind of complex financial modeling. Anna felt like the room was reeling. You researched him? He bit all my potential partners. The question is, why didn't I find any mention of you in the company's history? Marcus's voice was gentle, but his questions were surgical in their precision. If you were truly a partner for 3 years, if you contributed to the creation of these technologies, there should be records, incorporation documents, partnership agreements, employee records, because David erased me. Anna's voice came out barely above a whisper. After he filed the charges, after he convinced everyone I was a thief, he deleted my name from everything. Partnership agreements were rewritten to show that I was only ever an employee. Patent applications were amended to remove my name from the inventor credits. He made it look like I never existed. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. His fingers steepled in front of his face. That level of systematic documentation fraud. Anna, that's not just unethical, that's criminal. Good luck proving it. David is very thorough, and he has very expensive lawyers. So do I. Marcus reached for his phone. Jennifer, get me Charles Morrison at Morrison Webb & Associates. Yes, I know it's Saturday. Tell him it's urgent. Anna shot to her feet. Marcus, no, you can't. This will destroy your deal. Good. Marcus's voice was flat. Final. If this deal is built on stolen intellectual property, then it needs to be destroyed. You don't understand what you're risking, and you don't understand what I'm worth. Marcus set his phone aside and stood to face her. Anna, I could lose this entire deal and 10 more like it and still have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. What I can't afford to lose is my integrity. The simple statement hit Anna like a physical blow. When was the last time someone had chosen principles over profit? When was the last time someone had risked anything real to defend her? Why, she asked, the word barely audible. Why are you doing this? Marcus moved closer. Something fragile, trembling, but real. Hope. Close enough that Anna could see the flecks of silver in Marcus's gray eyes, could smell the subtle cologne that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She felt her walls begin to crack. "Because yesterday, you could have just accepted my mother's compliments to the chef and walked away," Marcus said softly. "But instead, you spent 10 minutes talking to her about her travels, asking about her experiences, treating her like a person instead of an inconvenience." His voice dropped to something almost intimate. "Because you speak 5 languages, yet you're serving wine for tips. Because you have an MBA from Columbia, but you're worried your boss thinks you're more trouble than you're worth. Because everything about you tells me you've been systematically diminished by people who should have valued you." Anna felt tears threaten again. "You're going to regret this when the lawyers start asking questions, when your board wants explanations, when David starts fighting back." "Let me worry about David," Marcus said, reaching out slowly, brushing a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "The question is, are you ready to fight back?" His touch was gentle, almost reverent, and Anna found herself leaning into it despite every rational thought screaming at her not to. "I don't know how anymore," she whispered. "He took everything. My work, my reputation, my confidence. I don't even know who I am without all of that." "I know who you are," Marcus said, his other hand lifting to frame her face, his touch warm and steady. "You're the woman who built a company from nothing, who created technology so advanced David had to commit fraud to steal it. You lost everything and still found the grace to be kind to a lonely old woman. You're someone worth fighting for, Ana Martinez. Do you believe that?" Anna looked up at him, this impossible man willing to risk millions for someone he'd known 2 days. It was insane. The timing, the closeness, the way her heart raced under his touch. But for the first time in years, she felt like herself again. Intelligent, capable, worth defending. "I want to believe it," she said softly. "Then let me prove it to you." Before she could respond, Marcus's phone buzzed. His expression hardened. "What is it?" she asked. "A text from David. He wants to move our meeting to Monday. Says he has exciting new developments." Ice filled Anna's stomach. "Marcus, be careful. If he suspects anything, he won't," Marcus said, his smile sharp and predatory. "As far as David Chen knows, I'm just another greedy businessman chasing profit. He has no idea what's coming." Anna wanted to warn him again, to tell him how dangerous David could be. But the resolve in Marcus's eyes reminded her what it felt like to have someone in her corner. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. "I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Trust, the word David had weaponized against her. But looking into Marcus's gray eyes, Anna felt something she hadn't in 2 years. Hope, the tentative beginning of faith. "Yes," she said, and meant it. "I can do that." Marcus's smile was like sunrise after the longest night. "Good," he said quietly, "because Monday morning, David Chen is going to learn that his past has finally caught up with him." When he pulled her into his arms, Anna let herself believe, just for a heartbeat, that justice might not be dead after all. And even if it was, at least she wouldn't be facing the darkness alone. For the first time in 2 years, Ana Martinez wasn't running. She was ready to fight. Monday arrived draped in gray clouds and drizzle, the kind of morning that felt heavy with meaning. Anna sat in a small cafe across from Marcus's building, her reflection blurred in the rain-streaked window as she watched people rush past. He'd told her to stay away from the office, to let him handle David alone, but waiting felt unbearable. Her phone buzzed. "Meeting starts in 10 minutes. Remember, whatever happens, David doesn't know you're involved. Stay safe." Her hands trembled as she typed back, "Be careful. He's more dangerous than you think." The reply came almost instantly. "I know, but so am I." She stared at the message, wishing she could borrow some of his certainty. Marcus didn't understand how dangerous David truly was, how easily he could turn a lie into fact, make villains look like victims and victims like fools. She'd seen it happen before. She'd lived it. And now, 43 floors above her, Marcus Blackwood was about to find out what it meant to go to war with David Chen. Marcus adjusted his tie, his reflection sharp in the conference room's floor-to-ceiling windows. Every detail had to be perfect. His tone, his posture, the illusion of calm control. David couldn't suspect that this was anything more than a standard business meeting. "Mr. Blackwood," came Jennifer's voice over the intercom. "Mr. Chen has arrived. Send him in." The doors opened, and David Chen entered like a man stepping onto a stage he'd built himself. Confident, polished, dangerous. He was shorter than Marcus expected, with perfectly styled black hair and that trademark smile. Charming at first glance, calculating underneath. Marcus, David said warmly, extending his hand. Good to see you. Thanks for moving this up. I know your schedule's insane. Not a problem, Marcus replied smoothly, shaking his hand. The grip was firm, the nails immaculate, the watch obscenely expensive. Every inch of him broadcasted success. As Marcus poured coffee from the silver service, David continued, I've been thinking about our timeline. I believe we can accelerate the merger by at least 6 weeks. My team's identified some additional assets that weren't in the original proposal. Marcus handed him a cup, voice even. Additional assets? David smiled, eyes glinting. Intellectual property, mainly. Some proprietary algorithms we've been developing internally. I wanted to run the numbers by you before we involve the lawyers. I appreciate that, Marcus said evenly, settling back into his chair, every muscle tight beneath the calm facade he projected. Tell me about these algorithms. Are they related to the risk assessment protocols you mentioned last month? David's smile widened, smooth and confident. Exactly. Revolutionary stuff. Predictive modeling that can identify market patterns up to 18 months in advance. It's going to change everything about portfolio management. Marcus nodded slowly. Impressive. Your team developed these in-house? Absolutely, David replied without hesitation. My lead researcher is brilliant, PhD from MIT, years of experience in quantitative analysis. We've been working on this for over 3 years. Marcus made a note on the pad in front of him, pretending casual interest while his pulse hammered beneath the table. And this researcher? No concerns about intellectual property? Patent disputes? All documentation clean? None at all, David said smoothly. Every line of code developed under contract, my legal team handled it meticulously. The lies flowed so effortlessly that Marcus almost admired the performance. Anna had been right. David was dangerous. That's excellent, Marcus said lightly, setting down his pen. You know how critical clean IP chains are in deals this size? 3 years of development is a serious investment for a company Pinnacle's size. How did you fund R&D? For just a fraction of a second, David's smile wavered. Initial funding came from private investors. Then we reinvested profits as the models proved viable. Smart, Marcus said. And this researcher, the one from MIT, they've been with you the entire time? Longer, actually, David replied smoothly. Academic credentials aside, what really matters is application. We've built something special together. Marcus's stomach turned. Each word was another knife twisting. David spoke as though Anna had never existed. Her ideas, her algorithms, her name, all wiped clean. I'd love to meet this researcher, Marcus said finally, watching him closely. Always like to understand the minds behind innovation. David hesitated only for a blink before recovering. Unfortunately, he's in Singapore right now, working with our Asian partners. Very hands-on. Brilliant, man. Just not one for boardrooms. Of course, Marcus said, voice mild. When he returns, I'd appreciate an introduction. In the meantime, I'd like to review the development documentation, the architecture, testing protocols, all of it. My technical team will need full transparency before we finalize. Naturally, David was already typing on his phone. I'll have my assistant send over a complete package by the end of the week. Marcus nodded, jotting one last note. Perfect! And David, he said, meeting his gaze, I appreciate your honesty about the additional assets. Trust, after all, is the foundation of any partnership. David's smile was radiant, blinding in its false sincerity. Absolutely, he said smoothly. Honesty in business isn't just ethical. It's profitable. Lies have a way of catching up with you eventually. The irony was so sharp Marcus could almost taste it. Couldn't agree more, he said, forcing a polite smile as David continued his performance, spinning projections of exponential growth and global dominance like a magician selling illusions. For 30 long minutes, Marcus listened, nodding, scribbling notes, pretending interest, while every instinct in him burned with disgust. When the meeting finally ended, David's handshake was firm, his eyes gleaming with practiced charm, and his confidence was absolute. Marcus waited until the elevator doors slid shut before his expression hardened. He pulled out his phone. Called Charles Morrison. Now. Across the street, Anna was on her 3rd cup of coffee, nerves raw, watching raindrops race down the window pane when her phone buzzed. Marcus's name flashed on the screen, and her heart stuttered. How did it go? She asked, her voice tight. Exactly like you said, Marcus replied. He lied about everything, the development, the research team, the funding, and
apparently his lead researcher is a man from MIT. Anna let out a bitter laugh. Let me guess. This brilliant PhD is currently unavailable, off in Singapore, too busy being hands-on to attend meetings? Exactly, Marcus said grimly. He even said that word for word. He's erased you completely, Anna. The casualness of it, it's sociopathic. I tried to warn you. You did, Marcus admitted quietly. And you were right about everything. For a moment, there was only the faint hum of city noise through the line. Then his tone softened. How are you holding up? Anna looked around the cafe, at people sipping lattes and typing on laptops, oblivious to how surreal their normalcy felt. Honestly, I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. David doesn't make mistakes, Marcus. If he's this calm, it's because he already thinks he's won. What do you mean? I mean he's planning something. David doesn't react to problems, he eliminates them before they exist. A cold tremor ran through her. Marcus, what if he knows? What if this is all a setup? That's impossible, Marcus said quickly. He couldn't know we've spoken. Are you sure? Anna's voice sharpened. Think about it. You ask him about someone from Colombia with a linguistics background, and 3 days later you're grilling him about patents and IP chains. You really think he won't connect the dots? Silence stretched on the line, heavy and ominous. Then Marcus spoke, his voice low and tense. You think he's figured out you're the Colombia connection? I think David Chen doesn't believe in coincidences any more than you do. Marcus exhaled sharply. Anna, where are you right now? In the coffee shop across from your building. Why? Because if you're right, Marcus said, his voice suddenly urgent, then you're not safe. He destroyed your life once when you were an inconvenience. What do you think he'll do if he sees you as a direct threat? Anna felt ice forming in her stomach. She'd been so focused on the possibility of justice, on the hope of vindication, that she hadn't fully considered what David might do to protect himself. And David had never been one to leave loose ends. Marcus, I should disappear tonight. Leave the city. Change my name again. No. Marcus's voice was firm. Running didn't work the first time, and it won't work now. David will just follow you. And next time, you won't have anyone watching your back. Then what do you suggest? I suggest we force his hand. Make him come to us instead of letting him hunt you down on his timeline. Anna's grip tightened on her phone. That's suicide. You don't understand what he's capable of, and you don't understand what I'm capable of. Marcus's tone carried a confidence that was both reassuring and terrifying. Anna, I didn't build a billion-dollar company by backing down from fights. And I sure as hell am not going to let David Chen intimidate the woman I... He stopped abruptly, and Anna's heart stuttered. The woman you what? She whispered. The woman I care about, Marcus said quietly. More than I should, considering we've known each other for 3 days, but there it is. Anna felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. Marcus, I know it's crazy. I know the timing is terrible and the circumstances are impossible. But I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since Saturday night. The way you talked to my mother, the way you stood up to me when I was being an ass, the strength it took to rebuild your life after David destroyed it. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're brilliant and kind and stronger than you think you are. I know you deserve justice, and I know I want to be the one to help you get it. Marcus paused. And I know that I'm not letting David Chen hurt you again. Anna wiped away a tear, amazed that she had any left after 2 years of crying. What if we can't prove what he did? What if his lawyers are better than yours? What if? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But Anna, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Trust. The word that had become her enemy. The concept that David had poisoned so thoroughly that Anna had thought she'd never be able to embrace it again. But sitting in this ordinary coffee shop listening to Marcus promise to fight for her, Anna felt something shift in her chest. Maybe trust wasn't about never being hurt again. Maybe it was about believing that someone was worth the risk of being hurt. Yes, she said softly. I trust you. Good, because I have a plan. 20 minutes later, Anna was back in Marcus's office listening to him outline a strategy that was either brilliant or completely insane. You want me to call David directly? Anna stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Marcus, that's exactly what he's expecting. He's probably already planning how to use any contact from me against us. That's what makes it perfect. Marcus paced behind his desk, his energy sharp and restless, conviction radiating off him. He expects you to hide, to stay in the shadows while others fight for you. The last thing he's prepared for is you walking straight into his office and demanding answers. Because it's suicide. Because it's unexpected. Marcus stopped pacing, his gaze steady and unyielding. Anna, think about it, and for 2 years you've been running from David, letting him dictate the story. What if you stopped? What if you took control back? A flicker of something dangerous, hope, mixed with her fear. Even if I wanted to confront him, which I don't, what would it change? He'll lie like always. Not if you're not going in alone. Marcus picked up his phone. I'll tell David my team found inconsistencies in his IP documentation and demand to meet his lead researcher. He'll make excuses, Singapore, remember? Then I'll tell him the deal depends on it. David won't risk the merger. Anna's pulse raced. Then what? Then you walk in as Dr. Anna Martinez, independent consultant verifying his algorithms. The boldness stole her breath. He'll recognize me, exactly, and that shock will make him sloppy. David thrives on control, but facing the woman he destroyed unbroken will shake him. What if he refuses? What if he calls security? On what grounds? Anna, you're not a criminal. His control exists only if you let it. Marcus came around the desk, his hands steady on her shoulders. I know you're scared. I know the last time you trusted someone, it ended in ruin. But this time's different. How? Because you're not alone. You have me. Anna looked up into his gray eyes and saw not pity but belief. What if we're wrong? What if this ruins you? Then I rebuild. But I can't rebuild my integrity if I let David win. And I can't lose you now that I've found you. The words hung heavy and real between them. His touch was gentle, grounding. Okay, she whispered. Let's do it. You sure? Terrified, but yes. It's time to stop running. Marcus pulled her close and she let herself breathe against his chest, borrowing his certainty. Tomorrow, she would face David Chen for the first time in 2 years. Tomorrow, she would either reclaim her life or watch it all burn again. But tonight, for the first time since her world had shattered, Anna Martinez felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The Pinnacle financial offices stretched across 3 pristine floors of glass and steel, a monument to power disguised as progress. She stood on the opposite sidewalk, coffee steam mixing with the October chill, staring up at the building that once symbolized everything she'd dreamed of, and lost. Second thoughts? Marcus appeared beside her, handing over a cup. About 100 of them, she said softly, fingers warming against the paper. I used to love this place. David and I picked it together, spent hours designing every detail. It was supposed to represent what we were building. And it still does, Marcus replied. The fact that he stole it doesn't change the truth. Anna studied him. The composure, the quiet authority, the way he made chaos feel manageable. Are you sure about this? Once we walk in, there's no undoing it. I'm sure, he said evenly. The question is, are you? She thought of who she'd been. Brilliant, trusting, unprepared for betrayal. Then who she'd become, afraid, erased, small. But beside Marcus, something steadied in her. She didn't want to be either version anymore. She wanted to be someone reborn. I'm ready, she said, and for once she meant it. They crossed the street together, his hand at her back a quiet anchor. Inside, the lobby gleamed just as she remembered, marble art, expensive restraint. The security guard's face brightened in recognition. Mr. Blackwood, good afternoon. Afternoon, James. We're here to see David Chen. He's expecting us. Of course, sir. 32nd floor. The elevators are... I remember, Anna said before catching herself. The guard frowned slightly, recognition flickering. Dr. Martinez is consulting on our merger, Marcus added smoothly. Intellectual property verification. Of course, have a good meeting. The elevator climbed, 20, 25, 30, each number like a drumbeat in her chest. Breathe, Marcus murmured, finding her hand. You belong here. This company exists because of you. The doors opened to a world frozen in time, chrome, glass, and ambition. A new receptionist greeted them brightly. Mr. Blackwood, Mr. Chen is waiting in the main conference room. They followed a hallway lined with awards, magazine covers, and photos of David shaking hands with powerful men. Anna's stomach twisted. He'd built an empire on her silence. The door swung open, and there he was. David Chen, immaculate as ever, with the same confident smile that once charmed her into believing lies. For an instant, her courage faltered. Then Marcus's touch steadied her spine. Marcus, David greeted warmly, extending his hand. Right on time, and you must be Dr. Martinez. Their eyes met. The room froze. For 3 long seconds, his face was blank, a flicker of shock, recognition, and unmistakable fear before the mask returned. Then, just as quickly as it had crack.
You've shown me what it means to fight for what's right, even when the odds are impossible. His gray eyes shimmered with emotion. I know we've only known each other for 6 months. I know it's fast, maybe even crazy, but Anna, I've never been more certain of anything in my life." He drew a steady breath, his voice lowering to something raw and intimate. "I love you. I love your brilliant mind and your generous heart. I love your strength and your vulnerability. I love the way you sign to my mother, the way you make terrible coffee, and that little crinkle between your eyebrows when you're deep in code." Tears welled in Anna's eyes, but they were tears of joy, something she'd once believed she'd never feel again. Marcus smiled faintly and continued, "Most of all, I love the way you've made me want to be a better man. You've made me believe in partnership that's real, in love built on respect, admiration, and genuine care." He looked up at her, sincerity etched into every word. "Anna Martinez, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that not all partnerships end in betrayal? That love doesn't have to be dangerous?" Anna looked down at the man who had stood by her through everything, the one who'd fought for her, believed in her, and helped her find herself again. The diamond in the ring caught the morning light, scattering tiny rainbows across the kitchen walls. Her voice trembled. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, Marcus. Yes to all of it." Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands steady despite the emotion in his eyes, and then kissed her with a tenderness that made the world fall away. When they finally broke apart, both were laughing and crying at once. "I can't believe you proposed to me in your kitchen," Anna said, admiring the way the ring sparkled on her hand. "I couldn't wait for some fancy restaurant or romantic vacation," Marcus said with a grin. "I wanted to ask you here, in the place where we've had our best conversations, where you taught me how to really live instead of just exist." Anna looked around the kitchen that had witnessed their battles, their victories, their laughter, and their quiet moments of healing. He was right. This was home. "Besides," Marcus added playfully, "after everything we've been through, simple and honest felt better than elaborate and performative." "Simple and honest," Anna repeated, smiling. "I like that." Marcus pulled her close again, and Anna marveled at how safe she felt in his arms. A year ago, she'd been hiding in Queens, convinced her life was over, that love was weakness and trust a mistake. Now, she was engaged to a man who had proven that love could be strength, that partnership could mean building each other up instead of tearing each other down. "So," Marcus said, voice warm with amusement, "any thoughts on wedding planning? Please tell me you're not one of those brides who wants a year-long engagement and a wedding that costs more than a house." Anna laughed, a real, effortless sound. "Actually, I was thinking something small. Family, close friends. Maybe your mother can teach me more sign language before the ceremony?" Marcus chuckled. "She's going to be thrilled. She's been dropping hints about grandchildren since our 3rd date." "Grandchildren?" Anna raised a teasing eyebrow. "We just got engaged 30 seconds ago, and you're already thinking about kids?" "With you," Marcus said, his grin softening. "I'm thinking about everything. Kids, grandkids, growing old together, the whole beautiful mess of building a life with someone." His tone turned serious. "Anna, I know David hurt you. I know trust doesn't come easy anymore. But I need you to know, I'm in this for the long haul. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." Anna's chest swelled with emotion so pure it almost hurt. "I know," she whispered. "I trust you, Marcus. Completely." The words would have terrified her months ago, but now they felt right, like freedom. She'd learned that trust wasn't about never getting hurt. It was about believing that some people were worth the risk, and Marcus Blackwood was absolutely worth it. "Good," Marcus said, smiling as he kissed her again, the morning sunlight wrapping them both in gold. "Because I have some ideas about our honeymoon that require a significant amount of trust," Marcus said with a teasing glint in his eye. "Oh, really?" Anna's tone was playful, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What kind of ideas?" Marcus grinned. "The kind that involve Paris, champagne, and showing you that not all French connections end in heartbreak." For a brief moment, Anna felt a pang at the mention of Paris, the city where she had once imagined a future with David, where her old dreams had first begun to take shape. But when she looked into Marcus's eyes, she realized that those dreams had been too small, too fragile, limited by the belief that love always came with pain. "Paris sounds perfect," she said softly, meaning every word, "as long as you promise not to propose again. I don't think my heart can take any more surprises today." Marcus laughed, the sound warm and effortless. "Deal." but I reserve the right to surprise you in other ways." "What kind of other ways?" Anna asked, raising an eyebrow. His smile was mysterious, full of promise. "You'll have to trust me." "I do," Anna said, and for the first time in her life, she meant it completely. "I trust you with everything." They stood together in the golden morning light, and Anna thought about how far she had come from the frightened woman who had once hidden in Queens, convinced that her story was over. She had learned that endings could be beginnings, that losing everything could teach you what truly mattered, that betrayal could be the spark that led you to rebuild stronger than before. David Chen had tried to erase her existence, but in doing so, he had forced her to discover who she really was when there was nothing left to lose. And who she was turned out to be someone powerful enough to rebuild, courageous enough to love again, and wise enough to know the difference between love that caged her and love that set her free. "So," Marcus said, tightening his arms around her, "ready to start planning the rest of our lives?" Anna looked down at her engagement ring, glittering like a promise in the sunlight, then up at the man who had believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. "I'm ready," she said, and for the first time in years, she meant it without hesitation. The future stretched out before them, bright, unbroken, full of promise. Outside the wide windows, the city pulsed with life, filled with people chasing their own beginnings, finding their courage, and rediscovering their strength. Somewhere in a federal prison, David Chen was finally learning what it felt like to lose everything he'd stolen. But here, in a sunlit kitchen overflowing with laughter, hope, and love, Anna and Marcus were discovering what it truly meant to have everything that mattered. And it was more beautiful than either of them had ever dared to dream.